We'll begin with a reign of terror. A few murders here and there. Even the moon's frightened of me, frightened to death. The whole world's frightened to death.
Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to another edition of Blood and Guts, HHN, where we break down the blood and guts of Halloween Horror Nights. And that night has finally come, Matt. You know what night that is?
Rankins video.
The ranking video. These are our personal opinions, so take that with a grain of salt. All of these houses were good in their own way. Some we liked better than others. Some we had good run-throughs. Some we had bad run-throughs. So, you know, feel free to leave comments if you like, but these are our opinions. But this is our HHN rank for this year.
You hit the nail on the head, Evil Adam. Like you said, to me, it was a great year. There was not one house where I say, man, that house was just absolutely terrible, pathetic. I would never do it again.
Right.
But something, when you have a list, something's got to go on the bottom.
That's
and
right.
something's going to end up at the top.
And
so like Adam said, leave us the comments. Leave us your list. We'd love to go through them.
Oh, yeah. And let's kick it off. Let's go with, you want to do 1 through 10 or 10 through 1?
Let's go 10 through 1. Just
All right.
build our way back up.
Back up. All right.
So I'm going to kick us off then from number 10. When we done our original hot video,
Yep.
my initial inclination was that The Exorcist was going to be the least of the lot. But number 10 for me happens to be Oddfellow's house.
Yep.
And just to give a little bit of background on why for me is I felt like it didn't have enough Oddfellow. I thought it was a good house overall. I know we touched on like the animatronic line, and there had the darts that zip by you.
Yep.
All the freaks in the carnival looked amazing. The makeup was top notch, but I wanted to see more Dr. Oddfellow throughout the house. I believe you only see him three times.
Yeah,
maybe.
about 3 times.
And I just want to see him have more of a presence throughout there. I figure since this is his first year as an icon, have him be a little bit more front and center throughout that house.
Sure. Yep. And originally my number 10 was also Exorcist because, you know, like we had the same thought was, you know, we haven't seen the film yet and we, you know, kind of possession films aren't our cup of tea. And, you know, of course that changed with this year. So my number 10 for me was Chucky. And that's because, you know, I've never been a big Chucky fan.
Right.
And for me, it just, in a year where you're in a Louisiana bayou and you're in a colonial town and you're in Stranger Things, you're in Last of Us, you're in all these great properties. Mm-hmm. Chucky to me just felt like the square peg in the round hole. You know,
Right.
it just didn't sit for me. I was walking through the house and I enjoyed the house and I had fun. I had some good laughs and I thought, but why is it here? You know, amongst all these great houses full of blood and stories and gore, and they tried the meta story and it kind of, for me, fell short. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm going to go, number 10 for me was Chucky.
Okay. We'll go ahead and stick with you then. Go ahead and lead us off with your number 9 house.
Number 9, let me take a look here on my list. My original number 9 was Chucky.
So that didn't fall too far down.
Yeah, the original number 9 was Chucky. Let's see where I fell now is my number 9 house is Stranger Things. And the reason I say that is because we touched on this, the screens
Right.
in the house. The screens of the woods, the screens of the bats and things, and you could see the curvature of the screen and so on. Kind of took me out of it. I was fully immersed up until then. Mm-hmm. And you know, some of the key scenes that I really wanted weren't in there for me. So just as my personal rank, you know, I'm going to have to drop that down on my list.
Okay. For me, in the hot video, my original number 9 was Blood Moon, Dark Offerings.
Yep.
But when we actually went through all the houses and made the multiple runs, this might be my first hot take for the fans, but number 9 for me was Last of Us.
Yeah.
And I thought the house looked great. I thought the makeup in it looked great. The costumes were amazing. There was just a couple set pieces in the house where it felt a little bit monotonous to me, like we'd already seen this in the room before, and now we're seeing it again. And then kind of going back and seeing what Hollywood got just made me long for that.
Yeah, that was a superior.
Yeah, it's one of the first years in a long time where I could say they actually had quite a few houses, because you already touched on Chucky, and I thought the Chucky house in Hollywood was way above and beyond better as well.
Right.
But yeah, that was for me. Like I said, it just felt a little bit monotonous in there. Just would love to see a little bit more different set pieces. I knew going in it was just going to be the Pittsburgh area, so I mean I should have had my mind just well trained on that.
Right.
But I just felt like they could have done a whole lot more with that property.
Yeah, sure. And that's a fair take on that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kick it over to number 8. My original number 8, the original hype, was Blood Moon. And my thought behind it at the time was, it's going to be like the Spirits of the Coven.
Right.
We didn't know a lot about it. It was kind of, not a lot to know about it. But then, after going through the houses, my number 8 is Oddfellow. And the reason that I say that is because we spoke on this earlier too, is, at the end of the day, it's just a circus house.
Yep.
Now, it's a well-done circus house.
Yeah, one of the better ones I've ever been in.
One of the best circus houses I've ever been in. But granted, every haunted house from here to Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon, Bob's Corn Maze down the street, they have a circus house that's clowns. Because, yes, I agree, clowns do terrify a lot of people. I, however, am not one of those people.
No.
So, I like the Oddfellow house, but it just, at the end of the day, left me, with a void to fill. So,
okay.
Yep.
That's easily understandable. For me, my original number 8 going in was Chucky. But then for me, falling down to number 8 was actually Dueling Dragons. And this is one where we kind of discussed in the other video. This was by no means a terrible house at all. It was a fantastic house. And I thought they set out and achieved what they wanted to achieve. For me, where it felt short on was the scares. So like when I'm going through there, I'm like, it's Halloween Horror Nights, expecting a little bit more horror things out of it.
Yep.
So I mean, that's really my only thing that took it down for me, was just the fact that it didn't have the scares. I thought the set pieces were amazing. The makeup was great.
The call back to the ride was good.
Yeah, call back to the ride was good. So I mean, as far as like I said, that just goes to show how we made that statement at the beginning, how this was such a solid year for this one to fall down to 8. It's like I said, by no means a bad house. I thought it was a fantastic house.
Right, and let me touch base a little bit, but and I've heard this from other podcasts and other people in the HHN community as well. Is this is a very, very hard year to rank.
Yes.
And usually, when you have a year, let's take last year for example.
Yeah, that was easy.
Last year, most lists were Pier was up at the top, Monsters was up at the top, so on, and then it went down.
Right.
Where you usually had Hellblock and Coven down at the bottom.
Right.
This year, everybody's list, even best friends, even enemies, are going to be different. Those lists are going to be different.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see as we go along, because I can't remember. I don't know if we actually align on anything on this.
I don't remember if we did on this one or not. I know we did on the previous hype.
But that was just Exorcist at the bottom. That was it. So, we'll go ahead and stick it over here with me then. For number 7, originally I had Darkest Deal as the 7th house I was hyped to go see. For this one, The Exorcist actually rose from number 10 up to number 7.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised by this house. So, when you first walked in and see that old town, the smells of the house, the actors in the house, like I said, they were just ramped up and done a great job. Had a lot of good scares in this house. Yeah. And like I said, I thought it was well done. And like I said, that's what made it rise for me.
Oh yeah, it was a pleasant surprise, is what it was.
Yes, it was.
So we're going on number 7 now, right? That 7 was the old 7 for me was Oddfellow, and 7, after going through everything else, for me was Last of Us.
Okay.
And I like this house a lot. I like the game. I like the show. Mm-hmm. I like the house. But once again, it falls under that category of, with so many great houses this year,
Right.
Where are you going to put it? It's going to be right there at 7 for me. Now, I liked the house. I like the clickers. I like everything else. The bloaters.
Yep. Look amazing.
The bloaters came after me every run. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was just great, especially that one around the corner beside the house when Joel's shooting from the window.
Yeah, I love that.
That one came hard and just came at me both times really well. But like I said, with all strong contenders this year, I had to put it a little lower at 7. So.
Like I said, I completely understand. Go ahead and hit us with your number 6 then.
Number 6, okay, yeah, my previous number 6 from the hype was Darkest Deals, because just didn't know that much about it, wasn't quite sure about it. But after going through everything, then my number 6 is Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you're coming in through that facade, and it smelled bad in that facade. But then I caught a little bit of a smell of incense, and I was like, oh, it's Nag Champa. And maybe I'm the only one that caught that, but maybe there's others that caught the Nag Champa, one of my favorite incense. And then the girls were on point.
Yes.
The scene when you're in the narrow hallway and the scrims go, and you see the girls inside the walls, the girls scratching at you, leaping at you. They were on point that night.
Yep.
And those runs of our Exorcist house the wait times were always pretty low.
Yep.
And we got in there, and they brought their A game every time. So I'm gonna have to put it on there.
Like I said, that one was a pleasant surprise. And for me, then moving up the list, the original list, number 6 was Last of Us, and then I actually ended up coming in way higher than you for Chucky. Chucky ended up being my number 6, and it's honestly, I know for me it's because I'm a fan of the series.
Yeah.
So it played well for me, and like where they did fall, for you said they fall short with the meta. I actually thought that was a good take on it. I still think they could have went more with it. I did enjoy the Chucky dolls. I wish we could have seen more because, like I said, when we looked out at Hollywood, they had so many that were articulate with those dolls. Where you really just had that first one when you first walked in that was puppeted and would talk to you and actually engage with the audience. And the rest of them are just kind of like static dolls that would either come out and move or the arm would just move, but the face wasn't articulate.
Or they were attached to somebody who was an actor, kind of thing. Yeah.
And like I said, where if you look at the Hollywood house, man, they were just all over that house. And I don't know how they got lucky and got that one, and they couldn't translate that one over to there. So, like I said, I enjoyed it for what it was, and maybe because I went in with such low expectations for it, that helped me enjoy it more. But I still felt like there was more that they could have done to actually make it rise up the list on there.
Right. Yeah. That's fair enough, too.
So, I'll go ahead and keep it to me then. My number 5 on my original hype list was Oddfellow. And but landing here, this is a house we both really enjoyed, is Darkest Deal. Okay. And I definitely enjoyed the set pieces with this house. I enjoyed the time period. Like I said, we're both love history. Mm-hmm. So going through those speakeasies and just seeing the, not the story
of Robert Johnson.
Robert Johnson, not the story he had to dream. But I thought they done a great job, like channeling that, and just had I believe they call him the collector. I know they didn't.
The collector,
the collector done a fantastic job of like trying to bargain for his soul. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed that whole house and the whole story and the narrative behind that.
Yeah, and it was a linear house. I mean, it actually told the story that it set out to tell, and didn't deviate from that, so that was pretty good.
Absolutely. So, kick it over to you then, Adam. What was your fifth house?
The 5th this year for me, the original 5 was The Last of Us, and now at 5 is Dueling Dragons, and it's kind of falls back on what you said, where it's a beautiful house. Yeah. It's a beautiful house. I love the ride. I love the story, but at the end of the night, after going through all the runs that we did of all the houses, at the end of the day, it still has to come in 5th for me, just because it was missing the horror. I love a good fantasy house, but it was just missing those kills, those iconic spine rips.
Yes.
And those things that I've come to love from HHN.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We'll go ahead and stick with you then. What was your number 4 house?
Number 4 originally on the hype was Stranger Things. And coming in strong, number 4 for me is Yeti. I love the Yeti. I love the way it looked, the way that it smelled, the old Ranger Rick throwback, to the Highlights magazines and posters on the wall and the kind of comedy-like kills of the Yeti.
Yeah,
I loved it, but it's still up in the top. But it was fighting. Trust me, it was fighting with all the other places above it.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I'll go ahead and hit you on my number 4. Originally, on my on the hot video, I had Monsters as number 4. Well, coming number 4 for me was Stranger Things, and as everyone knows, that was actually my number 1 coming in. So it dropped a few spots down.
Right.
I still loved how when you first begin, you see Eddie's trailer and you hear the Chrissy wake up, all those beats to begin with.
Yep.
I thought they done a fantastic job hitting that. Some of the things from your picking nits, I definitely understand. They didn't bother me as much on that. I thought they did a great job of capturing the mood of the story, the beats that they were going to capture. I know they said from the beginning that they wasn't going to focus on Russia. So I mean, that was a bit
Right.
of a bummer because Hopper's one of my favorite characters. So not seeing him in the house, that did stink a little bit. But I enjoyed watching them go through and looked up and you see Dustin up above, like from the upside
Yeah.
down back to the real world. Great job doing that. And then I love watching them battle the demi-bats and all that good stuff.
Yep.
So to me, it was a great house. Just wasn't, like I said, wasn't the best house. A lot of other ones just really come in and they really nailed it.
Yeah, this was a hard. I mean, I probably made this list 5 different times.
Yeah.
And went over it and changed it, and and it still might change again. But
Yeah, it might. You never know.
Yeah.
Sticking with me, then I'm gonna hit with number 3. For that one, number 3 in the hot video was Dueling Dragons, so we seen that one fail a bit. And just piggybacking off you, then mine moved up a little bit. Number 3 was Yeti.
All right.
And I just, like you said, I just loved that house, that whole forest setting to begin with, and then just seeing that baby Yeti that would already not only was it dead, you seen the maggots on top of her, they're already
Yeah.
eating the carcass. Just nice, fantastic touches on that, and then seeing the 1950s camper that we wanted, seeing how that woman's head get banged up against the window, and the dog getting killed, and
And let's not forget the iconic line from that old guy that pops out when you're right there looking at the lake. What the hell are those things?
like I said, just done a fantastic job, and just the costumes in there. The only thing that was missing for me, I would love to see, was that legendary kill from the first Yeti house where the guy comes up and the egg comes up from behind, the hand comes
Punches
through the
his
belly.
hand through. Yeah.
Oh man, I
Pulls it,
don't know
yeah.
why they didn't do that. I don't know, like maybe if they were doing it on other nights, but we never seen it.
Yeah.
But I thought that was missing.
Yeah. I feel like that house, it could have used a really, really elaborate kill.
Mhm.
Now maybe it did have one, like you said, in our runs we didn't get to see it. And if you did, let us
let us
know.
know in the comments.
But yeah.
So, kicking it to you then, Adam. What's your number 3?
My original number 3 on the hype was Yeti, and you see where that is. And now number 3 for me this year is Darkest Deals. I loved this house, and I went in there with moderate expectations. I was like, maybe I'll love it, maybe I won't. And I actually, this is just the other day, I was like, why was it so damn dark in that house? And I don't mean the content as dark. I mean, as in I couldn't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, did they turn the lights down even lower? And then it hit me, well, we came in from daylight.
Yeah.
So our eyes
Yeah,
hadn't
I'd
adjusted.
adjust.
So it was, because I mean, it was so dark in the scene with the rocking chair that's going by itself.
Mhm.
And just the plot got me. The scene with the musicians coming out, they're stuck in the walls, the guitars on them and stuff like that. I just loved it. I just loved everything. The story. And we got to the end of the house. It's probably that last 2.5 rooms. And they had a blues song. And it was playing with such a heavy reverb on it that it sounded like it was way down the hall.
Right.
And I was like, I stopped for a second. And I was like, man, who does this song? In my mind, I'm like, I really do like this song. I know this song. And then as soon as I go to that, boom, they come out and get me. So that house was a pleasant surprise for me.
No, I'm with you 100%. Like I said, I really enjoyed that house as well. So keeping it with you then, go ahead and hit us with your number 2.
Number 2, according to the hype, was Dragons. And you see where that's come to. And number 2 for me this year was the first house we did the first night that we attended Blood Moon Dark Offerings. I walked into this house, Boys and Ghouls, and I saw the set. I saw the parish town.
Beautiful.
And I was like a kid in the candy store. I said, this is beautiful. I didn't want to leave. And just the village setting, the bodies, the lady that's strung up like Jesus, but she's got the candles,
Right.
burning off of her and all that. The lady that she locked eyes with you through the window.
Yeah.
And did that
Setting me up for that later scare.
perfect scare later on. And seeing this house on the tour as well.
Yeah.
The tour. Well, that's what really brought it through to me, to that one. I was like, man, I'm battling. My number 1 and number 2 are battling. But here it fell, number 2, Blood Moon.
We'll talk about that. We kind of flip-flop. So for me, my number 2 originally was going to be Yeti, and it dropped to number 3. My number 2 was Monsters. And I just thought, oh, this house, like the set pieces were just absolutely gorgeous. Like you felt like you were in the Paris and in the catacombs. And just coming in there at the very beginning of the house, seeing the Invisible Man toying with the constable and him thinking, was that you? What'd you say? What'd you say? What are you doing here? Get out of here. And then just going through and seeing all the characters and how they introduced like the Invisible Man, and they just totally nailed it with that character. He's like, "I'll put my fingers around your throat," and just seeing that the way the black light hit all the robes and everything, and just the black sackcloth over the face where he really looked invisible, and just all the characters like the Hunchback, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like I said, he's done a fantastic job with this house, and just like I said, it was really battling for number one, but it was just edged out by. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about my number one then. Originally was Stranger Things, but it turned out to be Blood Moon, like we were talking about. And like I said, I just enjoyed that Blood Moon house, like the sets. We're talking about the sets and the characters, the set pieces. I loved it when you go into the church and you had all the ones sitting around. You don't know who's real, who's not, and the actor's done a great job of just staying perfectly still until the right moment to scare you.
That room got everybody.
Yeah, and like I said, that house was just well done. And I have to do research because I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I know that was the same person that done the pier.
Yeah, the designer.
Year before.
Yep.
So I'm going to keep an eye out for that every year now, which house he designs, because I know we're going to be in for a real treat whenever we get those houses. So
Yep.
Kicking it over to you then, Evil Adam. What's going to bring home the top prize for you as House of the Year this year?
Let me think about that. That's going to have to be my number one on the hype, and my number one remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's Monsters Unmasked, because I absolutely loved it. From the first run we did, that first night we attended, we were soaked. We had been in a monsoon, and we went in this house that's cold and dark, and you can smell the fog.
And obviously the monsoon stunk. I don't mean to cut you off then, but I remember telling us, "Oh, so man, when you first walk in here, it's supposed to feel like it's raining on you," but they cut that effect off since everybody was already wet.
Right. Well, we did get that the second.
Right.
The second night we did get the rain, but this house just. I mean, my favorite is the Invisible Man.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite Universal monster has and always will be the Invisible Man. And when they decide they're going to put him in a house and they're going to give him a scene where he's in the room and you don't know who's coming at you, he's swiping down from above. He's got, "My fingers around your throat." You know, the Hyde scene, we got to see the spine rip.
Yes.
And I love the spine rip. I've been begging them, please, just give us any kind of spine rip, even if it's not the body collectors or any of those guys. And so we got to see Hyde, and Hyde was on full tilt that night.
Yeah.
All the nights.
Ferocious.
He was just right up in your face, and so was the Hunchback.
Yep.
I loved it. I love the scene where he's slicing faces in the catacombs, and then he's got the girl barricaded into the door. I mean, I could talk about this house all night long.
Like you mentioned the Hunchback. I love when he's up in the bell tower and he's got that little bungee on, so then he like comes down. I can't remember exactly what the effect is called, but he comes down, looks like he's getting ready to fall, and he's pulled back by that bungee, and it's just absolutely awesome.
And like, you know, the first night that we got to the event, I went in, and in my mind I said, "This is my number one on my hype."
Mm-hmm.
I walked out after the first night, and I went, "It's still number one."
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to beat.
The second night we went back, I said, "It's still number one," and sure enough, there it remained, and so on and so on and so on. So it just didn't lose its footing at all. That's how much I love the sets, the smell of the flowers. I mean,
oh yeah, they nailed that.
Everything in this house was a great touch, and I can't speak highly and enough about it. So,
well, Booze and Ghouls, there you have it. That's our 10 through 1 rankings this year of our favorite houses at Halloween Horror Nights. So we come to a close to another year, HHN 32. I believe the last night of the event's November the 4th. So
yeah,
by the time this video drops, should be the last weekend
countdown.
So, but don't fret. We still going to have some HHN content where we're going to break down the tier.
The Grand Tour. We were joking about that, boys and girls. Let's tell them a little about. So Buck Flowers in They Live. That's his line. "Hey, I got some buddies of mine in town. You mind if I give them the Grand Tour?" So that's where that comes from. The inside. But yeah, that was a great year. Hard to rank these.
Very hard, like you said.
I mean, I've made this list 4 or 5 times.
We mentioned it earlier, but leave us in the comments your rankings of the houses 1 through 10. We'd love to hear from you. Do you agree with our list? What were some picking nits that you have for our list? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, totally. And as always, stay tuned for more good content from Blood and Guts. And don't forget, happy Halloween from Blood and Guts.